Hello, I'm Ari Melber, anchoring more of our live special coverage after this first presidential debate, 9:30 p.m. out west, 12:30 a.m. out east. Reaction already rolling in around the nation to this first debate of 2020, which honestly often felt a lot like 2020. Chaotic and messy, loud, hard to sit through at times, with petty clashes and recriminations that were not just, let's be clear, the random results of the system or another political squabble, but quite specifically the direct and intentional result of Donald Trump and Trumpism, at war with the rules, the facts, and anyone and anything that represents those rules and facts.
Jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
Folks,
absolutely agreed
folks, do you have any idea what this clown's doing?
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question
the radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man. It's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this
Hey, let me just say.
Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back, sir?
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Was it a rhetorical question? Well, over the next 90 minutes, we're going to bring you special coverage that actually aims to push beyond those loudest clashes of the debate. Perhaps it may even be, if we're any good at it, a journalistic antidote to the sound fury and endless Trump interruptions and over-talking. We've got special guests. We've got some fact checks. We have a look at how this debate's already playing in some key states and across our culture tonight, with a lot of people paying attention. All that's up ahead. But we begin right now with insights from our A-list guests on a big night. The Grio's Jason Johnson, Democratic analyst Aisha Mills, and longtime Republican strategist Steve Schmidt. Jason Johnson, I ask you, what was that?
In the immortal words of Lil Wayne, what the blank, yo? I mean, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And I cannot impress upon people enough to understand, if you haven't been listening for the last 4 or 5 months, I've said it, other people have said it. Donald Trump is not running for president. He is not running a presidential campaign. He is just trying to consolidate power. Joe Biden is trying to run for president. Chris Wallace is basically reenacting a floor mat. But Donald Trump is just trying to consolidate power. And any time you have a sitting president of the United States basically call upon a terrorist organization like the Proud Boys to go out and intimidate people at the polls, that should have been the end of the debate. I thought tonight was an embarrassment.
Let's go into that.
I don't think there should be any more debates.
Let's go into that. You say there should be no more debates. I could see people agreeing with you. Americans will exercise their own choice of their time. They may not watch as many more debates. And yet that was such an important a historic low point. I want to go to you and then Aisha on what it means to have this president, who has sown so much racial discord, refuse to condemn that white supremacy on that stage tonight.
Well, yeah, all right, here's the thing. It's not just that he refused.
I'm sorry, I'll go Jason and then Aisha.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, or it's not just that he refused. He basically told them, be ready, get your guns cocked. And if you look at on Instagram, the Proud Boys are putting out logos that say, stand back, stand by. So the president has called upon them, as he has done several times in the past, called upon white nationalists to intimidate and disrupt the election. That is what makes it dangerous. By the third debate, he will literally just stand there and say, get your guns ready and shoot Democrats. He was half a step from saying that today. That's why there shouldn't be any more debates.
Yeah, and since we've talked so much about moderating this evening, I will say as a moderator, he didn't quite literally say that. But I take your point about the direction. And Aisha, as Jason points out, this was not stand down, this was stand by.
Exactly. And here's the thing. The president has told us who he is. He has shown us who he is. Again, tonight, he has shown and told us that what he's trying to do is to stoke a race war in this country. This is not brand new. Donald Trump has been doing this his entire career. He's been creating racial animus. He's been perpetuating racial animus. He has been advancing himself through racial animus and by siding with white supremacists and bigots. The thing, though, that makes this so appalling is how many times does this guy have to show us who he is and tell us who he is? If it's not Charlottesville, where he's saying there's good people on both sides, him literally, the tape is going to play 1 billion times of him refusing to denounce white supremacy. He can't even utter the language out of his mouth to even say white supremacist. He calls on the Proud Boys as if they're going to stand up with him, and that's what they're doing. But the thing about this, Ari, I think in all the discourse we're going to have for weeks after this, is that this is not new. We need to remember that Donald Trump has always shown us who he is. And at what point is the American public going to believe him becomes the question. We've got just over 30 days to make some real tough decisions in our lives. And we all need to go out and vote our conscience.
Yeah, and Steve Schmidt, as someone who has prepped for these high-profile debates, your view of the very deliberate way, as everyone saw, that Donald Trump broke the rules they'd agreed on and really tried to make himself the overarching theme. Now, if you don't like Donald Trump or you're on the fence, you may have had a negative reaction to that. It may not have worked on everyone. And yet, on the other hand, it certainly blunted what would have been a conversation that involved more of Joe Biden and more of the moderator discussing things like facts about the COVID death rate or facts about civil rights in America. Steve.
Well, I think that this debate was a debacle for Donald Trump, and I think it's the beginning of the end of the presidency. What you'll see in the next couple of days is movement by at least a couple of points, probably outside the margin of error, and you'll really see the gravel start to slip and all of this start to go down. One thing you won't see tomorrow is any United States senators out there talking about what a great job Donald Trump did tonight. So let's just back up for a second. What this was tonight was a disgrace beyond any ability of any of the three of us to articulate. It was a national humiliation. You saw a president who was unhinged, lying, sweaty, disheveled, angry, petulant, and most important of all, completely incapable of making any type of argument about why he should have 4 more years. He appeared to be crazy for most of the debate. And so Biden had some great moments on COVID, on the economy, on the military that Trump called suckers and losers. And the reality of 2016 is this. Whomever that race was about was the person who was losing the campaign. And Donald Trump was losing that campaign for 98% of the race until the last week, when James Comey made it about Hillary Clinton, just enough that Donald Trump won by 78,000 votes. And one thing
Steve,
that everyone...
Let me jump in, and then I'm going to give you the mic back. Since we have been talking about moderator rules around here, I will give you a chance to respond. But to be a little millennial about it, when you say he was losing that whole 2016 race, one millennial rebuttal would be, was he? Or was there an undercounting of the support, including the racial animus that Jason Johnson mentioned? And how does that filter into tonight, where I take your point? I imagine many people listening to you, many objective people would agree with the core of your argument about what Donald Trump sounded and looked like. And yet, is there still this support network for him as long as he can disrupt these debates so they don't become a further exposition of his failures in office? Steve.
Well, what I would say to that is there is a mythology about the 2016 race that the polling was wrong. The polling was not wrong in 2016. The polling showed that Hillary Clinton would win the popular vote by about 2.5%. Now, she should have been in Michigan. She should have been in these other states. The Hillary Clinton campaign shouldn't have stopped their polling operation in September. That's all water under the bridge. Here's the point. 2020 and 2016 are different elections, and everybody in the media is understating Biden's strength right now and overstating Trump's, because no one wants to be wrong again. Joe Biden has the biggest lead of any presidential candidate in the modern era. It's the biggest, the broadest, the most durable lead that you've seen in the modern presidential era, and that lead is going to get bigger, not smaller, after this debate. What we saw tonight was, no pun intended, the real Donald Trump, and he's completely unhinged. You saw tonight the first American in 4 years to stand on a stage with this lying, blustering buffoon and try to hold him to account. Joe Biden didn't do anything to disgrace himself tonight. And when you have somebody who's up there breaking the rules, has no compunction whatsoever about doing anything at any time so long as it benefits him, that's what you get. But this debate was about one thing in the end tonight. One thing that matters happened in this debate tonight. Donald Trump intimated and threatened violence against this country if he loses the election. Make no mistake about it. It's exactly what he did, exactly what he meant at the end. And these Proud Boys are a white supremacist neo-Nazi group. And before we got 1 hour after this debate, they have a new shoulder patch for their camouflage outfits, right, that call them to violence.
Let me bring in Aisha on. Those are very serious and important points. Let me just bring in Aisha. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you think about the entirety of the debate, the only group that Donald Trump shouted out with some sense of, I'll just call it affection, for at least that's how they're taking it, right? So he may not claim that he's a racist, but the racists think he is. Every other line in it was all just about Donald Trump and his bluster, talking about how great he is, and then supposedly knowing the strategy of what Biden should or shouldn't do. He said a couple of times, oh, you've lost the progressives. He also said several times, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. If you had the chance, you wouldn't. Donald Trump only empathized with, praised, and appreciated himself throughout. And I think that this is really important, is going to matter, because people often, Monday morning quarterback 2016 and say, well, Donald Trump related to so many folks. He actually was the populist candidate that talked to the little guy and reflected their values, and people felt connected to him, whether you like it or not. Well, we now have had several years of Donald Trump in leadership, and I think that what people are tiring of and just exhausted by is the fact that all Donald Trump does is talk about himself, and essentially talk to himself. And so the piece that we can't forget are the politics are personal, and it's all about the people. We don't have any of that coming out right now.
Since we're deep in this, I want to play I think we have the sound of that moment. We were discussing this Proud Boys moment in the debate. Many people watching this probably watched it, but because we're putting it under this warranted scrutiny, let's take a brief look at that.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to specifically
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
That's the moment. People can adjudicate it for themselves. My panel stays. I want to give, with the minute I have left, just a closing thought there from Aisha and Jason. Aisha first.
Black people know what dog whistles sound like. White people know what dog whistles sound like. Donald Trump has used them repeatedly. The Republican Party has used them throughout history. Our country is founded upon them. This is not, in my mind, open to interpretation. We're not confused about this. I don't see a debate about what those words are. Now, you can choose to accept them for what they are or not, but the reality is that we need to debate nothing. We literally should just keep playing the tape of Donald Trump in his own words, saying the things that Donald Trump says, and believe him when he shows us who he is.
Yeah, this isn't a dog whistle. This is an air horn. This is a didgeridoo. This is a klaxon. The president said, if I don't win in a way that I like, white terrorists, I want you to go out and kill people. That's what he said. Well, I want to make that clear. And I also have a real problem with how Chris Wallace put the question, because he happened to mention Kenosha and he happened to mention Portland. He didn't talk about Louisville, where you had white nationalists in Louisville. He didn't talk about the white nationalists who were trying to intimidate voters down in Virginia. Even the framing of it suggests that white nationalists only magically appear where there's Antifa. No, they have been operating around this country hand in hand with cops all throughout these protests throughout the course of the summer, and the President of the United States has consistently encouraged their behavior and encouraged them to become more aggressive and violent.
Yeah, I think it's deadly serious in that regard. The three of you have spoken with moral clarity, and this goes to why even, I think, after a night as chaotic as it was, because Donald Trump wanted to make it so, it still is scrutiny. And as Steve said, it's still the first time in years we've seen him up there with anyone, and people can assess his mentality, his acuity, whether he seems like someone who can even hold on a conversation that is fact-based, let alone the moral dimension we discussed. The entire panel stays, so we're good there. I'm excited to come back to you with some other points. We're going to fit in a quick break, and our special coverage continues.